chapter 30. Deuteronomy chapter 30. Deuteronomy, also known as, these be the words in Hebrew, also known as the book of the law. The book of the law, Deuteronomy, these be the words, Adabarim, chapter 30, verses 1 through 10. Chapter 30 of Adabarim, verses 1. And the book of the law reads, shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind, nations, whither Yahweh thy Elohim hath driven thee, return unto Yahweh thy Elohim, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, children, with all thy heart and with all thy soul. Yahweh thy Elohim will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither Yahweh thy Elohim hath scattered thee. If any of thine into the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will Yahweh thy Elohim gather thee, will he fetch thee, and Yahweh thy Elohim to the land which thy fathers possessed. And he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. Elohim will circumcise thine heart. See, to love Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart. How thy Elohim will put all these curses upon thine enemy, thee, which persecuted thee, and thou shalt return and obey, and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day. Elohim will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, land for good. For Yahweh will again rejoice over thee, as he rejoiced over thy father. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, book of the law, and if thou turn unto Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart and with all thy soul. That is Deuteronomy chapter 30, 10. Now we turn to Isaiah the prophet, otherwise known in Hebrew as Yeshaya. Yeshaya, or Isaiah, chapter 58. Yeshaya chapter 58 from verses 12. Yeshaya chapter 58 from verses 12 to 14. And the prophecy reads, and they that shall be of thee, old waste places, thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations. The repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. If thou turn away thy foot from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call light the holy of Yahweh honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, own words, then shalt thou delight thyself, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth with the heritage of Jacob thy father. For the mouth of Yahweh, that was Isaiah 58, verses 12 through 14. Now we turn to the renewed covenant, otherwise known as the New Testament, into the epistle called Acts of the Apostles. Apostles chapter 13, verses 38 to 44. Acts of the Apostles chapter 13, 8 to 44. And the epistle reads, be it known unto you, therefore, men and brethren, and is preached unto you the forgiveness of sins And by him all that believe are justified from all things, for which ye could not be justified by the law of Moses. Therefore, lest that come upon you which is spoken of in the prophets. Behold, ye despisers, and wonder and perish. A work in your days, a work which ye shall in no wise believe unto you. And when the Yahudim were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Shabbat. Now, when the congregation was broken up, many of the Yahudim and religious proselytes and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of Yahweh. Shabbat day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of Yahweh. That was Acts chapter 13, verses 38. Now we turn to the epistle that was written to the Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 8. Hebrews chapter 8, verses 6. Hebrews chapter 8, verses 6. And the epistle of the Hebrews reads, but now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry. Also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. First covenant had been faultless, had been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, a new covenant, the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, according to the covenant that I made with their fathers, took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith Yahweh. Is the covenant that I will make after those days. I will put my laws into their mind, in their hearts. I will be to them Elohim, and they shall be to me. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know Yahweh, for all shall know me, from the least, for I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. Verses 6 through 12. Revelation of the Mashiach Yahushua. Revelation chapter 14, verses 6, 7, and 12. Revelation chapter 14, verses 6, 12. And I saw another angel in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear Yahweh and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him in earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. Verse 12. Here is the patience of the saints, they that keep the commandments of Yahweh, of Yahweh Shai. That was Revelation chapter 12, verses 6, 7. Now we stay in the book of Revelation, the revelation of the Mashiach Yahushua, Revelation chapter 11, the area of the seventh trumpet. Revelation chapter 11, 10 to verse 19, the seventh trumpet of Revelation. Revelation chapter 11 to 19. And the prophecy reads, and the seventh, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world, the kingdoms of the Master and of his Messiah, he shall reign. And the 24 elders, which sat before Yahweh on their seats, and worshipped Yahweh, saying, we give thee thanks, O Yahweh al Shaddai, and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and his reign. And the nations were angry. Come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. And the temple of Yahweh was opened in heaven. In his temple, the ark of his testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and great hail. Revelation chapter 11, verses 15 to 19. Please, we turn back to Isaiah the prophet, or Yeshaya. To a Yeshaya, and we look at chapter 66. Chapter 66, verses 22 to 24. Chapter 66 of Yeshaya, verses 22 to 24. Prophecy reads, "For as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, so shall your seed and your name remain. Come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Shabbat to another, as come to worship before me, they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me. For their worm shall not die, fire be quenched, and they shall be in abhorring flesh." Praise the Most High. Into the morning's readings. Thank you, Sister Josie, for hosting the reading. Praise the Most High. Right? We are studying Deuteronomy, and we have completed the first 9 chapters of this very powerful. Deuteronomy is the book of the law, and it gives us, as we have stated, it shows us history, the history of our people, the nation of Israel. It shows us the covenant, statutes and judgments that are offshoots of the covenant. It shows the times when the Most High was angry with the people. This is a future return to the land and the blessings of glory to come. Size of the coming of the Messiah. And it shows Moses as a type of Messiah. He's between and Father Yahweh, who is speaking this book to the people through Moses. So we studied the first of the book of Deuteronomy, and today we're looking at chapter 10. And the theme today of chapter 10, vision of the heart. Of the heart. Now, in order to understand what circumcision of the heart means, for us to study and understand what circumcision of the flesh means, what the circumcision of the flesh means, right? So let's look and see where circumcision began officially in the scriptures. The first time we see circumcision in the scriptures is in Genesis chapter 17. So let's look at Genesis. We're going to read this chapter through, but we're talking about circumcision of the heart. And I want to show circumcision in the heart by understanding what circumcision in the flesh. So let's take a look at it. Genesis chapter 17. Genesis 17. I'm going to begin at verse 1 to verse 10. Genesis 17 from verses 1 to 10. And when Abraham was 90 years old and 9, to Abraham, and said unto him, I am Al Shaddai, for me, and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee exceedingly. And Abraham fell on his face, talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, father of many nations. Neither shall thy name be called Abraham, but thy name shall be Abraham. Of many nations have I made thee, and I will make thee exceeding fruitful. Of thee shall come out of thee, and I will bless, and I will establish my covenant between me and thee, after thee in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be an Elohim unto thee after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land, stranger, all the land of Canaan, everlasting possession, and I will be their Elohim. And Elohim said unto Abraham, my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generation. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. He said that he had established his covenant with Abraham, and we know there's but one covenant. It is commonly referred to the Ten Commandments. That is the covenant, the same covenant that Moses went to the mountain to get. So what was circumcision? There were there's a fleshly part on a man's penis, is that covering in the front of the penis. The Most High had commanded Abraham to cut that part off, to cut that part off of the penis. Why? Because it would be a sign that they would be obedient of Yah. Okay, so that there would be a sign in their flesh, obedient to the covenant of Yah. By cutting off that part of the skin, then there would be a sign that these people belonged to Yah and were obedient to his covenant, were keepers of his covenant. Okay, let us continue. And he said, every man child among you. So he noticed he promised Abraham, I'm going to establish my covenant. I'm going to bless you. Kings are going to come out of you. What does that mean? When a person's a king, we consider them, isn't that true? When a person is a king, they are royalty, right? We consider a king royalty, and they're of a royal seed. So Abraham was now, he himself was established as, you follow me? So people wonder, where does royalty come from? Well, I don't know where it comes from with regard to earthly men, to earthly monarchs, but I know with regard to our seed, the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it is established by the Most High with Abraham, from Abraham to Abraham, from being a father to being father of many nations, Abraham, and Abraham, royalty. The Most High has made him royalty and made his seed after him royalty, particularly the seed that came from Isaac, because he said, in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Now, Abraham had many sons, as we would see later. If you study Genesis, he had sons with a woman named Keturah. He had many sons. He had sons, of course, with the Egyptian woman. He had sons, and those sons were blessed, and those sons also, went to different areas of the world, and they exist today. But the promised seed from which the royalty is, and so he said, as a sign that I have established my covenant with you, every man child among you shall have that of his flesh that's going to be taken off. And you're going to show by that you're obedient to my covenant. That so far? Let's continue. Let's look at from verse 11 down to verse 11, from verse 11 down to verse 18. You shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. See, it's a token of the covenant between them, a token of the agreement that Abraham's going to keep. As part of the blessing, the Most High is going to bless Abraham for keeping the agreement. Okay? And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generation. he that is born in the house or bought with money, stranger, which is not of thy seed, thy house, and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised, shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. And Elohim said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, shall her name be. And I will bless her and give thee a son also of her, bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. People shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear? Unto Elohim, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. So now you can see, laughed. That's why his name was called Isaac, or Yisha'ak, which means to laugh. It means to laugh, Yisha'ak, because he laughed when he was first told by the Most High that he was going to have a son, and that Sarah was going to be the mother. Now notice what he said about Sarah's son. Sarah only had one child, or Isaac. She only had the one child. Yisha'ak was her only child, and the Bible said, the Most High said, kings of people shall be of her. See, so the royal seed, now I'm not saying all of Abraham's son wasn't blessed, they were, but the royal seed is named in Yisha'ak, or Isaac. That is the royal seed. It's very important, see, because many people today, like there are Islamic people claiming that, because Ishmael was blessed, that the royal seed came from him. No, the seed is called. Okay, we're going to show that in the scriptures after. But it was the circumcision was a sign of the obedience to the covenant. So the people that weren't circumcised were not going to be obedient to the covenant. That's why he said they were going to cut off. Okay, let's continue. So then Abraham said, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee, because he said, okay, I don't know about this being 100 years old and Sarah being 90 and us having children. He said, but I know Ishmael's here. Please bless Ishmael. Right? So let's continue from verse 19. 22. And Elohim said Elohim said, Sarah, thy wife, shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Yisha'ak, as Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. I have heard thee, and behold, fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. Shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac. I'll bear thee at this set time in the next year. Talking with him, and Elohim went up from Abraham. He went up from Abraham. That means he had come down to talk to Abraham. Can you imagine? The Most High came down to talk with Abraham. Then he went up. So now he said, I will establish my covenant with Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him and with his seed. Now, let me ask a question. It's for y'all to know. It says, I'm going to establish my covenant with Isaac, who you're going to have. You haven't had him yet. You're going to have a son. I'm already naming him. It was a year before he was born. You already named him. Yisha'ak. That's his name. Yisha'ak is his name. And his name is Isaac, and I'm going to establish my covenant with him and with his seed after him. Will the Most High ever forget that promise? Will he ever forget that promise? Will he ever forget that promise? That he is establishing a covenant with Isaac and with his seed after him. Will the Most High ever forget that promise? Will it be unfulfilled? The Most High's promises, he said, thus shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall prosper. And it shall, what did he say? No, I'm messing it up. Let me say, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. Turn unto me void, but it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. I'm missing a part. It's Isaiah 55, verse let's see. 11 and 12. It says, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish. That's what I was mentioning. But it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. For ye shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth before you into singing. All the trees of the field shall clap their hands. So he said, it shall prosper in the thing I sent it. It's going to me void. Is going to accomplish what I please. So in 2017, do you think he's remembered the covenant? Has he remembered the covenant in 2017? Has he remembered Isaac or Yishaak's children in 2017? Has he remembered his covenant? Yes, he has remembered it. He has remembered Ishaak's children, even though Ishaak's children have been rebellious against him and had to go into slavery and had to go into many centuries of hard labor and hard time because of their violations, their breaking of the covenant. And he has said he's going to bring us to repentance and bring us back a remnant of the seed. The dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with a remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yahweh and the faith of Yahweh. The remnant of the seed of Israel, seed of Isaac, he remembered. And the devil knows who they are, and he's attacking them even to this day. Forgotten the remnant. He has not forgotten the seed, the royal seed. Though they are lowly now, though they are poor now because of their sins against the Most High, he has not forgotten who they are. He is still the royal seed. Praise the Most High. They're still the royal seed. So let's continue. Genesis chapter 17. Let's continue. Genesis 17. We're talking about circumcision of the heart now, but we haven't gotten there yet. We're just talking about circumcision of the flesh to get ourselves warmed up to that. So let's continue. We're going to come back to Deuteronomy chapter 10, but we're just getting all this backdrop so that we understand what we're reading when we go there. So Genesis chapter 17, we're going to read from verse 23 down to verse 27. Genesis chapter 17, Barashit, from verse 23 down to verse 27. And Abraham, Ishmael, his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male of Abraham's house, as the flesh of their foreskin in the self same day. As Elohim had said unto him, he was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old in the flesh of his foreskin. In the self same day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and of his house, born in the house, and bought with money, were circumcised with him. So there's a couple of things here we need to understand. Whoever is circumcised is partaker of the covenant and partaker of the blessings. Do you understand? Whoever is circumcised with Abraham is partaker of the covenant and partaker of the blessings. That would be him, the strangers that dwelt among him, and even the slaves that he bought, the people he bought as servants, takers of the covenant. You understand what you see that? So they were partakers of the covenant. And the covenant was the same covenant that Moses brought down from Oreb, from Mount Sinai. It's the same covenant. And it was a sign in their flesh that they were going to be obedient to that covenant. They were in the agreement with the Most High. Now, let's look at Romans chapter 4. Romans chapter 4. And we're going to continue on this vein. Now we're talking about being circumcised in the heart, right? Circumcised in the heart. So Romans chapter 4. Off reading Romans 4 from verse 1 down to verse 10. Romans 4 from 1 to 10. How we say then that Abraham, our father, as pertaining to the flesh, hath found. For if Abraham were justified by works, he hath whereof to glory, but not before. But what saith the scripture? Abraham believed Yahweh, and it was counted unto him. Work is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt. But to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. Also describeth the blessedness of the man unto whom Yahweh imputeth righteousness without works, saying, blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven, are covered. Blessed is the man to whom Yahweh will not impute sin. Then upon the circumcision only, circumcision also. For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness, when he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision, but in uncircumcision. So the apostle is bringing out the point that Abraham received the blessing of righteousness uncircumcised. And that as we're going to read in a couple of seconds, the circumcision was a sign of the righteousness he had already received. A sign of the righteousness he had already received. Now, it doesn't mean that a person shouldn't be circumcised. He's not saying they shouldn't be circumcised, but he's saying that people that are uncircumcised can receive the righteousness of the Most High, because Abraham received it while he was yet uncircumcised. You understand? Abraham received the righteousness while he was uncircumcised, and he entered into covenant with the Most High while he was uncircumcised. That is why we call it righteousness by faith. We receive righteousness from the Most High by faith. He said it was imputed to him. That means it was given to him. He did not earn it. He believed in the Most High. He trusted the Most High, and the Most High counted it for righteousness and gave him righteousness. And he will do the same for us. So he's basically telling us how to be justified. Even in the narrative that we read, he used the word justifieth the ungodly. To be declared innocent, though you've been ungodly, is through faith in the blood of Messiah, to receive righteousness from Yah in the name of Messiah. Does that make sense, brothers and sisters? So Abraham received righteousness before he was circumcised. So let's continue. 4 from verse 11, down to verse 13. We'll stop at verse 13 for this part. I think we're getting the point here. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness he had being yet uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also. Circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of our father Abraham, which he had being yet uncircumcised. That he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, righteousness of faith. You see, the righteousness of faith. So Abraham received the righteousness of faith, and through that righteousness that was imputed to him, he received the promise that his seed would be blessed, his children, his physical children would be blessed going forward, even if they weren't circumcised, for if they had the faith that he had. Now, why did he have to bring all that out? Why did he have to bring all that out? Because at the time of the apostle Shaul, there were Gentiles that were not of the seed of Abraham, that were wanting to be part of the nation. That to be part of the nation, they had to be circumcised. But the apostle Shaul was telling them that no, they received the righteousness of Messiah while they were uncircumcised. So why do they need the circumcision if they already received the righteousness? And this brings us to our point for today, back to Deuteronomy chapter 10. Because when Abraham was commanded to have his children circumcised, that they would be obedient to the covenant. But when somebody's already obedient to the covenant, itself is a sign. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when a person is obedient to the covenant without being circumcised, the obedience itself is the sign that they are the children of Yah. The obedience to the covenant is the sign that they are the children of Yah, even if they're not physically circumcised. Does that make sense, brothers and sisters? Are you following me? I'm going to write my law in their hearts. And that's what he means when he says, circumcise the foreskin of your heart and be no more stiff-necked. We're going to read this in Deuteronomy chapter 10. Why does he say that? Because he's telling them to be obedient to the covenant. Don't just make it a sign in the flesh. It's like people throw tattoos on their body as and say it means this or it means that. Disobedient, all the circumcision in the world won't mean anything. As a matter of fact, it was a bunch of uncircumcised men that the Messiah's murder. Isn't that correct? It was a bunch of circumcised men that Judas that betrayed Messiah. Isn't that correct? Circumcised people did that. It was circumcised people that rejected the Messiah. So being circumcised didn't stop them from being disobedient to the covenant. Circumcision was just a sign in their flesh that they were going to be obedient, but it didn't stop them from being disobedient. The obedience of faith, the justification that comes by faith, that's why the Bible says, Paul the apostle Shaul, he writes, he told them, you are our epistles, known and read of all men. You are the epistle. He said, do we need letters to prove who we are? He said, you are the letter. All men. What do you mean by that? Because of the obedience of faith, of being justified and receiving righteousness, the people shown they belong by being obedient to the word. And this is really the Most High wants his people to be obedient to his word. That's what all of this is about. He wants his people to be obedient to his word. And by obedience, what we need is the spirit of what? We need the spirit of obedience, which is the spirit of righteousness. He wants us to understand. And that's why the New Testament is so important, brothers and sisters, because it clarifies things that the Old Testament is trying to say, but that wasn't made as clear as it is. So when Messiah came to that woman at the well, and he said, Yah is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. He's trying to give her the way to be obedient. Okay, we have to connect with the Most High in the spirit of obedience and the spirit of the covenant. Okay, praise the Most High, Yah. So now let's look at Deuteronomy. Now we have all that background. Let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 10. Deuteronomy chapter 10. Deuteronomy 10. I'm going to read from verse 1 down to verse 5. Deuteronomy chapter 10 from verse 1. At that time, Yahweh said unto me, hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and come up unto me into the mount, and make thee an ark of wood. Write up on the tables the words that were in the first tables which thou breakest, and thou shalt put them in the ark of kittim wood, and hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and went up into the mount, having the 2 tables in mine hand. And he that is Yahweh, wrote on the tables, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments, which Yahweh spake unto you in the mount out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly, gave them unto me, and I turned myself and came down from the mount and put the tables in the ark which I made, and there they be, as Yahweh commanded me. I want you to understand also, gave them the commandments in the day of the assembly. Can you please tell me, according to the scriptures, the translation of the word assembly? What's another translation? Assembly. Synagogue, yes, synagogue. What's another commonly referred to translation today? What will we say today? The word assembly. That's right, Sister Joseph. Church. So he said, in the day of the church, what does that mean? That means the people of the nation of Israel were called together to hear the covenant of the Most High, to enter into covenant with him. That is the true church, the nation of Israel. So when he calls in the New Testament, when he says the church in this man's house, or the church there, or the church at so-and-so, he's talking about the same called assembly that was called to be obedient to the same covenant. That's why we say, when we read the New Testament, the so-called New Testament, we say these people that we're reading, whether it's Ephesians or Romans or Galatians or Philippians, we are reading people who are converts to the nation of Israel that were among the Gentiles. Nation of Israel. Are you following? Converts to the nation. Okay? There you go. Converted by the spirit of righteousness to be obedient to the covenant. And that's why a lot of them were getting circumcised. And the apostle had to tell them, the circumcision is not going to do you any good. Why? Because if you're not obedient, the circumcision doesn't mean anything. Right? Because it was a bunch of circumcised fellas that turned Messiah over to the Romans. It was a circumcised man that betrayed Messiah. We had a bunch of circumcised kings in Judah that followed Balaam. So circumcision didn't stop them from being disobedient to the covenant. They perverted the whole thing, because it was not about the cut in the flesh. It was about obedience to the covenant. Righteousness. Okay? It was about righteousness. And it still is about righteousness. Exactly. If you're not getting the righteousness part, what's the use in getting your flesh cut just for a sign? Now he says he went up into the mountain with 2 new tables, because he broke the first tables that were given to him from the Most High. And the Most High wrote. Moses didn't carve in the tables. He didn't carve the covenant in tables. It says, and he wrote on the tables according to the word, according to the first writing of the 10 Commandments, which Yahweh spake unto you out of the mouth. So Yahweh, the second time on the tables, when Moses went up into the mountain, Moses brought them back and put them in the ark, and that's why it's called the Ark of the Covenant, called the Ark of His Testament, which is a New Testament Greek word that means the same thing, covenant. Revelation 11:19 says the Ark of His Testament is the Ark of the Covenant. It's the same thing. So in the Ark of the Covenant contains the covenant. It's called the Ark of the Covenant. Why? Because it contains the covenant. It's an ark that contains the covenant. Okay, so he came and he brought the covenant to the children of Israel. They put it in the ark of the covenant. People get all, they get all teary-eyed and they get all woozy about the ark, because there's some people say that it's a part of the ark, or the ark is in Ethiopia, whatever. The key thing now, in heaven. Remember, we read it. We read it this morning. It says in the sanctuary was opened in heaven, and there was seen the ark. So the ark in heaven is the one we focus on, not any ark on earth now. And the covenant, obedience to the covenant, is what we're focused on. This of obedience to the covenant is our whole reason for being. We give the Most High honor and praise when we are obedient to His covenant, which is a representation of His character. Character of righteousness. Praise the Most High God. Let us continue. Deuteronomy chapter 10 from verse 6 down to verse 10. Deuteronomy chapter 10. He's going to go into some historical things here, some events. And the children of Israel took their journey from Beeroth of the children of Yaakan to Masarah, and Aaron died. And there Aaron died. And Eleazar his son ministered in the priest's office in his stead. From thence they journeyed unto Gudgodah, and from Gudgodah to Jokbath, rivers of waters. At that time, Yahweh separated to bear the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, to stand before Yahweh, to minister unto him, and to bless his name unto this day. Levi hath no part nor inheritance with his brethren. Yahweh is his inheritance, according as Yahweh thy Elohim promised him. Now, according to the first time, 40 days and 40 nights. And Yahweh hearkened unto me at that time also. Destroyed it. Now, Levi was chosen to bear the ark of the covenant. That Moses was of the tribe of Levi. Of course, Aaron. And they were chosen. And what happened? Over the course of time, the tribe of Levi was set apart to teach the Israelites the law and commandments. They were set apart and they were supposed to receive tithes along with the poor and the fatherless. They were supposed to receive tithes as well. They were supposed to receive tithes, and they were supposed to teach the people the law. People the law. All right. And what happened over time? They started wanting the money. They started wanting money. Money. And so they started using their priestly position to get more money. Corrupting. And until it was done away. Right? Until there was no more. Until it became Pharisees and Sadducees. Okay. They're still tribe of Levi to this day. They're scattered with the nation of Israel. They're scattered. But there are still people using religion to try to get money, even using the truth of the nation of Israel to try to get money. Okay. It's a sad, sad, sad situation. It was never the intent of the Most High that his people should focus on worldly money and wealth. Not have an inheritance with their brethren, which means they would not have a land set aside in terms of a tribe. They were given land now, but they were given land in different sections of the nation. Why? Because they were supposed to teach the people the commandments and covenant of the Most High. They're supposed to teach the people the laws, statutes, and judgment. They were ordained for that purpose. They were set aside for that. History, they were supposed to be that. Okay, the priests set aside, born into it through Moses and Aaron, born into it. Okay, been set aside. And he said, I set them aside for myself. He said, I am their inheritance. Well, what greater inheritance can you have than the Most High himself? Money. And ever since, and brothers and sisters, people have been using religion to manipulate people and gain money for thousands of years. Okay? And that's why we are very leery of religion. Very leery of religion, brothers and sisters, because people have been using religion to get control of people for thousands of years. Okay, we are faithful to the Most High Yah and his word alone. His word alone. We're going to talk more about his word being under attack. His word alone, we trusting, clinging, cleaving. That's how we cleave to him. We don't actually have a physical being to cleave to. We can't touch him with our hands, our eyes, but we have his word. He has left us the most important part of him. Make sure we understand what I just said. He has left us the most important part of him. Word. The most important part of him is his word. He has left us that to cling to cleave to be faithful to trust it. Right? So now let's continue. Deuteronomy chapter 10. Deuteronomy chapter 10. 11 down to verse 16. Deuteronomy chapter 10 from verse 11 down to verse 16. And Yahweh said unto me, arise, take thy journey before the people, that they may go in and possess the land, which I swear unto their fathers, unto them. And now, Israel, what doth Yahweh thy Elohim require of thee? But to love Yahweh thy Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him and serve Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of Yahweh, which I command thee this day for thy good. Behold, the heaven is Yahweh thy Elohim, the earth also with all that therein is. I had delight in thy fathers, to love them. He chose their seed after them, even you above all people. Baptize therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. See, circumcise the heart means to be obedient to the covenant. And we know that the only way to be obedient to the covenant is to receive the spirit of righteousness from the Most High Yah by faith. To be justified by faith and receive of his spirit is the means by which we are obedient to the covenant. To receive of his spirit is the means by which we are obedient. Without his spirit, we can't be obedient. It's like a body does not have life without breath. Take breath out of a human body, what do you have? A dead body. Isn't that true? To take breath out of a human body, you have a dead body. But to have breath in the body lives. The mind works and everything operates when there's breath in the body. Well, we need the spirit, which is the spirit is the breath of righteousness from the Most High Yah. We need the breath of righteousness in our soul in order to be obedient. Otherwise, we're just a dead man walking or a dead woman walking. We can't obey anything, and we're going to be headed to death without the spirit. And so we receive that spirit by faith as we are repentant for our sin and the sins of our fathers. We receive that spirit, and we know our fathers. We can see here in the book of Deuteronomy, our fathers were stiff-necked. They gave the Most High a hard time. We ourselves were also stiff-necked and disobedient and give the Most High a hard time, and we repent of our sin and the sins of our fathers, forgiven, to be justified. Because why? Because Messiah, Yahushua, of Israel, and paid the penalty of their sin, that they might be justified. And through the name of Yahushua, who is perfect in righteousness and holiness, we also can be perfected in righteousness and holiness that he gives us as a gift. Though he imputes to us, though we don't deserve it. And we are sanctified or set apart. By the spirit of righteousness, we are set apart. Why are we set apart? For several reasons. Number one, if we receive the spirit of righteousness from the Father, it is a set apart. It is different from the demonic spirit. It is different from the spirit of man. It is set apart. It is holy. When we receive of that spirit, he considers us set apart. Because the Most High, as we have read, he has promised Abraham that his seed would be royalty, set apart royalty for himself. Chosen you above all people, as it is this day. And we have read that. He has chosen the nation of Israel above all the people of the earth. Though the whole earth is his, he could have chose anybody he wanted. He chose the children of Israel, the seed of Abraham, above all people to be set apart for him. Set apart. And he means that his righteousness would be shown, his spirit of righteousness be shown through you and I. Heart. He said, by this shall the earth know that I sanctify you. You keep my Shabbats. That all may know that I am Yahweh that set you apart. I sanctify you. May know that I am Yahweh that sanctifies you. Also, he told Ezekiel. He has shown us. He has intent that the earth and the universe should see that we are set apart in his spirit to be obedient to his covenant. Praise the Most High Yah. Circumcise this foreskin of our hearts that we might not be stiff-necked, so that we be obedient through surrender. Our hearts are circumcised. Don't forget that. Through surrender and repentance, our hearts are circumcised. By faith, the justifying power of the blood of Messiah to cleanse us from all our sin and make us part of the assembly of the nation of Israel, part of the true assembly, the Israel of Yahweh, the true nation. Let us continue. Let's read the rest of Deuteronomy chapter 10. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 17 down to verse 22. Deuteronomy chapter 10, from verse 17. For Yahweh, your Elohim, is a God of gods, all masters, a great Elohim, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not persons nor taketh reward. Execute judgment of the fatherless and widow, stranger, and giving him food and raiment. Love ye therefore the stranger in the land of Egypt. Fear Yahweh thy Elohim. Him shalt thou serve, and him shalt thou cleave his name. He is thy praise, he is thy Elohim. These great and terrible things which thine eyes have seen. Thy fathers went down into Egypt 70 persons. And now Yahweh thy Elohim have made thee as the stars of heaven for multitude. See, brothers and sisters, when we go into the land, obedient to the covenant of Yah in 2017, you become strange to all the people around you. When you are obedient to the covenant of Yah in 2017, his righteousness of spirit upon you, you become strange to all the people around you. Most particularly, you become strange to the religious people around you, because the spirit of righteousness from Yah is so much brighter and more powerful than their false doctrines and false gods that they cannot help but see you are different from them. You're not trying to be different. The spirit sanctifies you and sets you apart. You understand? You don't have to set yourself apart. The spirit sanctifies you and sets you apart. I want to make sure that is stressed. We're not trying to be set apart of ourselves. It is the Most High Yah that sets us apart as we are obedient to his covenant by the spirit of righteousness that he caused us to be declared innocent. Okay? Strangers in the land. We are strangers to people around us. And sometimes, as we see in prophecy, they will not treat us well. In fact, we know that those of us that are from the seed of Abraham that have been in slavery were not treated as strangers. But he tells us to remember that we were strangers so that we would always treat strangers with respect. He said, love ye therefore the stranger, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Respectful of all peoples, regardless of where they're from. Be respectful of all peoples, regardless of where they're from, whether they be heathen, idol worshipers, or whoever they be. Be respectful of them and of their beliefs. You just follow what you're supposed to follow. He said, what does he require of thee? But to fear Yahweh thy Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart, with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of Yahweh and his statutes, which were commanded through Moses. That's what he requires of us. And respect all people, because you also are strangers because of the obedience of righteousness which is upon you. Love the stranger. Amen. Let's continue. Let's finish the chapter. Thou shalt fear Yahweh thy Elohim. Him shalt thou serve, and to him shalt thou cleave, and swear by his name. He is thy praise, he is thy Elohim. He hath done these great and terrible things which thine eyes have seen. Thy fathers went down into Egypt 70 persons, and now Yahweh thy Elohim hath made thee as the stars of heaven for multitude. I read it again, it's okay, but I'm telling you, Yah. And we show how we cleave to him by obedience to his covenant. Okay, we show how we cleave to him by obedience to the covenant and to his word. Close to his word, we stick close to his covenant. Even many times we're in ignorance because we don't know any better, because we're trying to learn. All of us trying to learn, and therefore all of us in some ways is always trying to enlighten us. The more we are surrendered to his word, the more we are surrendered to the covenant, the more we are, the more his spirit is given to us, the more he'll bless us and open our eyes and open our minds and cause us to be closer, even closer to him. Praise the Most High Yah. Here, we finished chapter 10. Continue.